Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, on Ghana, anywhere you find your podcast. Our guest today is Donna Sager Cowan, here to talk about With the Passion of a Pig. Before we invite our guest in, I would love to invite you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the live event button at the top of the page. We love presenting live events, but of course, live events right now here in the summer of 2020, going into the fall of 2020, they're not really happening the way they used to be. Everything is online and virtual. Well, we have taken the hint, and we have transformed all of our live events to be presented virtually. We're really proud and excited that we're going to be back at the Rochester Fringe Festival in September. Rochester, New York Fringe Festival. We'd love to come to your community, come to your school, your church, your library, and present our programs virtually, safely for all of your communities. We love to inspire kids to read. We love to inspire kids to respect every single person that they meet. We also, now that I'm the co-host of the Solve It for Kids podcast, we love to inspire kids to investigate the STEM and STEAM fields. Find out all about it. Go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the live events button. Find out how I can bring my educational magic programs to your district. Joining us right now from Northern California. We are so very happy to welcome back this guest. She is the author of a great series called The Superhero School. Please welcome back to the show, Donna Sager Cowan. Donna, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice and sunny and warm here in Northern California.
Well, you know, I am happy to say it's nice and sunny and warm here in Boston, too. And this is like the first time I've been able to say it this year. It's been a crazy year with the pandemic and the weather and everything. But we're really happy to celebrate your really phenomenal middle grade series. I'm so happy for you. We're here to talk about Book 2 and Book 3. So why don't you just kind of remind us what the Superhero School series is all about?
Absolutely. So the Superhero School series follows a group of animals led off by Cat the cat and Simon Cheddar, a mouse. Now, Cat the cat is from the real world, and she stumbles through a portal into Sweet Meadows, where Simon Cheddar lives as a mouse. And they have kind of an unusual meeting. They're naturally enemies, so they have to learn to get along, and they have to learn to listen to each other and their different points of view and become friends and partners at Superhero School that they attend. So when we pick up the second book, With the Curiosity of a Cat, they have attended a couple of classes with Superhero School, and they've had an adventure. And so now we're starting with the second adventure, where the Superhero School teacher is telling them that heroes must know how to fly. And so she sends them off to go skydiving. And, you know, this is quite a dilemma for both of them, because Simon is so excited. He always wants to try new things. He wants to be first in line. He really is kind of the daredevil in all of us. But Cat is a little more nervous. She's not had a lot of good things happen in her life until she met Simon. So she trusts Simon, but she's a little scared, and she even says she has no reason to jump out of a perfectly good plane, especially with a bed sheet. So she's a little nervous. So we do have a little convincing on the part of Simon, and with a little help from his other friends, Patty and Freddie at Superhero School, to convince Cat to get on the plane and to try and jump. So we pick up with Simon and Cat being the last two on the plane. And this is what happens. The mouse fell from the plane with a startled yelp. Not expecting to find himself tumbling end over end through the brisk morning sky, Simon was surprised and a little scared. He tried to catch his breath, but the wind whipped it away just as quick as he inhaled. He firmly gripped the round handle bumping against his leg and pulled hard. It didn't budge. Simon's head spun as he cartwheeled through the clouds. He tugged with all his might to release the parachute. Sweet sweat beaded on his upper lip and his teeth ground together for one final pull. The handle broke in half and the ripcord dangled useless in his hand. The broken plastic slipped from his nerveless fingers as Simon continued his tumbling spiral to the ground. This was bad on a level that even Grandma Whisker's famous rants couldn't fix. If Cat was terrified before, watching his best friend die would finish her off. Unless... With that hopeful thought, Simon felt Cat's body slam into his parachute pack. His hope was short-lived when she just as soon whooshed away before his nervous, frozen paws could grab a hold. Simon tried to slow his whirling descent as Cat swam closer only to slide past him and his dizzy, grasping hands. After the third try, Simon managed to stop spinning, but he was falling faster instead. His brain reminded him that they had gone past the count of 45 and both their lives were in serious danger. There was no time left for plans or finesse. Simon reached for Cat, missing her paw by inches. Before she could swerve away again, he curled the tip of his tail like a hook and clasped it around Cat's tail. Cat caught on to his plan and braided her own tail with Simon's to resemble a rope. Tails coiled tight, they reached toward one another until they could latch their packs together. When the final buckle clicked into place, they both grabbed the ripcord and pulled for their lives.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. And it just reinforces my opinion of skydiving.
Well, I'm with you on that one too. I'm not a big fan of it.
It's interesting that we're talking and that you read this excerpt from the book. My niece was over the other day, and we're taking this wonderful hike, and because of the pandemic, she can't spend as much time with her friends. She was going through a list of things that she wanted to do with me this summer, and it included hiking some mountains and going on a bike ride and maybe going for a ride in a helicopter or an airplane. And then she mentioned skydiving, and I said, "You got to stop right there, because there ain't no way this person's jumping out of an airplane."
Which I love, because I recently did some posts on social media about Team Cat and Team Simon, and I find it's very funny for those that have read the book so far that they're kind of split down the middle. We have a lot of daredevils that are totally Team Simon, and we have a lot of us like you and I that are a little more Team Cat. We want to take it a little easier and check things out before we jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Yeah, I wonder who ever came up with the idea of, hey, how this flying thing, that's really cool. Let's take another step. Let's go out of the plane.
Well, I actually think that part of it came up during the Second World War when they were trying to move troops as efficiently and quickly as possible. So they devised this means of moving them closer to a target and then just shoving them out with, as Kat says, a bed sheet to drift down to the ground with.
Absolutely. Well, the writing was so compelling, and the drama was just, you're on pins and needles whether or not Kat and Simon are going to be able to get together in mid-air. How is it for you to write that? Do you get really excited as you're writing a passage like that? Do you know what's going to happen, before you start writing, or are you just as excited as the reader to find out what's going to happen next?
Well, I'm a little bit of both. I do have, the overall plan for, what is going to occur in the beginning, what is going to happen in the middle, and what's going to happen at the end. But as far as writing, I generally allow my characters to guide us from, point one to point two to the end. That way, it's exciting for everyone. And I never know quite how they're going to get into these predicaments or how they're going to get out of them. Which brings us to our second one, because they do land safely in tangled trees, which is a jungle. And what they discover in the jungle is kind of a mystery. They find a bunch of animals that are locked up in cages, and they're not quite sure why. So they run into some more animals in the jungle that we meet. Penelope, a porcupine, being the leader amongst them. And she lets them know that these monkeys have moved into the jungle and have taken over, and they are capturing animals and selling them to the human world. So I'm going to read you another excerpt, where we meet the head of the monkeys named Morgan Banana. Morgan Banana slammed the phone against his polished desk for the third time in 2 hours. Steam poured from his ears. He was madder than ever before. His dad called to say forcefully and colorfully how disappointed he was to hear about a lost shipment from someone else. He felt like a child, scolded and sent to bed early. Then, just as he got his temper under control, their idiot lawyer dared to ask Morgan to remove a decorated police officer from the Sweet Meadows Police Department. If that pot-bellied, balding ape couldn't do his job, Morgan wouldn't do it for him. However, the call created one more problem Morgan had to juggle. Why would a sergeant be digging into their shipping practices? They didn't have any clients in the area. Unless... Morgan pulled up the video again and was considering one sneaky mouse's demise when a call from his ship's captain came in. As head of shipping, Morgan hired every captain. More than once, the loyalty inspired netted BBI valuable information to keep them out of trouble. This call, however, caused his temper to explode. The missing cargo on his ship was sailing to saltwater plains. If he paid local officials to overlook the discrepancies, it was a different matter if they had to ignore fraud. He needed that ship back. When Morgan demanded just that, the captain calmly stated that he couldn't change course without a reason. Morgan didn't care about reasons, he just wanted results. This headache was not going away, Morgan realized. The ship was halfway to its destination, and rerouting it would bring attention he couldn't afford. He could allow the ship to dock if the cargo stayed under guard and then steam back to tangled trees immediately. It was a garbage plan with so many flaws that Morgan was still sputtering into the phone when the captain hung up. If the police were watching, any changes to the ship's route would alert them. Morgan had to be careful. That scrawny mouse had caused more headaches than Morgan could count. He'd bet his father's fortune that the parachuting spies, the mouse special ops, and the Sweet Meadows Police Department were all part of one giant coconut cream pie. And Morgan hated coconut, especially coconut pie. All that sticky, flaky whiteness made his teeth ache. They were connected. A squad would be waiting at saltwater plains, including inspectors. Morgan needed that barnacle-bottom boat back now.
Mm-hmm. Dun, dun, dun. It sounds like you have an awful lot of fun writing these books.
I have a blast writing these books. It gets me to kind of think like a kid again, to kind of look through their eyes and their lens at what would be fun and interesting. And, I kind of get to let my imagination run free that we don't often get to do as an adult, which I find very liberating.
And that's something that I'm really happy that you discovered this, because you're right. There aren't enough adults who allow themselves to be imaginative and creative, and I think it's important for all of us to remember that that imagination's not just for kids.
No, our greatest inventions throughout history have been from things that were so imagined that we couldn't even grasp the concept, yet alone visualize what that would be, but it has turned into reality. I mean, think about, putting someone on the moon or in outer space. That was somebody's vivid imagination that imagined that, and now it's reality.
Yeah. Well, speaking of imagination, we had so much fun, hearing those excerpts from book 2. I'm really excited to talk to you about book 3, which you are calling With the Passion of a Pig.
Yes, With the Passion of the Pig is the third book, and we're going to bring forward one of their sidekicks, which is Patty Porter. She is a pig. She is a genius, and she is a very tech savvy. She can pretty much make any electronic device speak her language backwards, forwards, and sideways. So she's pretty critical to their group in trying to help them solve a lot of these mysteries. So in book 3, we bring her forward, and she is kind of leading the charge because their town matriarch, Mrs. Gristle, who they affectionately call Mrs. G, is missing. And they can't seem to figure out why or where she has gone. And so Patty has triangulated her last position using her cell phone to the portal that Kat came through only weeks before. And so they are all headed off in the early part of book 3 to this portal to see if they can figure out what happened to Mrs. G, which is going to bring me to an excerpt that I'm going to share from that book, and it's from Kat's perspective. Kat nodded, then followed her friends down the dirt road to Mouseville, her mind wandering back to the day she arrived. Kat pushed her body up from the ground. Thankfully, the dogs chasing her for the last 2 blocks were gone. She didn't know when or where she gave them the slip, but her wheezing breath and thundering heart reminded her that she couldn't have outrun them any further. Her muscles ached from jumping, skidding, and running away from the dogs through yards, alleyways, and busy streets. Kat ran for her life. She needed to lay off the biscuits from the bakery dumpster. Kat couldn't afford the extra weight slowing her down. She rubbed her small, protruding belly and grinned. But those biscuits were really good, though, she muttered to herself, then quickly slammed a paw over her mouth. Who said that? Kat turned in a slow circle, noticing all the trees, green grass, and dusty gravel surrounding her for the first time. The sharp white rocks poked and pinched her paws. When she looked down, she was walking upright on her hind legs. It should have felt strange to walk like that, but it didn't. It was easy, normal. Weird. Kat froze. She definitely heard that. She could talk? Like humans? How? Kat carefully checked her head for lumps. Nope, she hadn't smacked herself silly. Maybe she had fallen asleep and was dreaming. Or maybe she hadn't escaped the dogs after all and had finally exceeded her 9 lives. Except she could feel the rocks beneath her paws, smelled the fresh-cut grass, and see the swirling dust motes that tickled her nose. Achoo! She wasn't dead or dreaming. She was very much alive and completely lost.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Is there any author that inspires you, that you feel you share similar styles?
I'm not sure that I share a very similar style, but I like to think that I have taken a few notes from Dave Pilkey with his Captain Underpants series, and from the I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he does the Geronimo Stilton series. Uh-huh. It's Italian, and I'm just not real sure about the pronunciation of it, but I'd like to think that I follow those, but for me, it's more about just telling a good story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you certainly have good role models. My son absolutely devoured everything that Dave Pilkey wrote. He, Captain Underpants would come out and he'd get the new book and he would read it forwards and backwards and could recite it within a day or 2 of receiving it.
Right, which I absolutely love. And again, the part that I like about Dave Pilkey is he's very relatable to that age group, which is what I want to be. I want to tell a story that's relatable to them. And I purposely chose animals because, in this day and age where we have so many comparisons, kids often have a hard time with stories because they don't see themselves in the story. And where I have the animals here, we take away all of the race and, whether it's a boy or a girl, and we just have animals, and so they can easily see themselves in each of the characters, or they can see a part of themselves in each of the characters, which I find amazing, and it just opens that many more doors to kind of get the message out about friendship and self-esteem and self-reliance and learning to be tolerant and accepting.
So important. Now, was there a particular person in your life that inspired you to write for this age group?
Well, I'm very blessed to have 6 beautiful grandchildren. And so I try to write for them, the majority of them being in this middle grade age group of 7 to 12-year-olds. In fact, the entire storyline and series was inspired by my youngest granddaughter when she was asking me about one of my actual cats and what it was I thought she did at night when she was gone for hours and would come back exhausted. So we came up with the story that she was a superhero and she's out saving her animal friends. But when we had to go all the way back to the beginning and tell the story of how she became a superhero.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. One of the things you mentioned earlier on is that you have a lot of interaction with folks on social media, and you actually have a Team Simon and a Team Cat. What's that like as an author, interacting with your fans like that?
I absolutely love it. They are the reason that I get up every day and write these stories. I could care less about fame or fortune, but I want to be a beloved author for my life and beyond. And so to get to actually talk to people, to children that love my books and my stories and are excited to hear what's going to happen next and to read the next book is the greatest gift I can imagine for whatever amount of work I have to put into writing these books. So for me, it is the ultimate reward, and I so enjoy it.
That's wonderful. Now, do you have a map of how many different superhero school books there'll be?
Well, at this point, I do have the series laid out as 8 books, but we'll see. It might go a little further than that. We'll see. But I am right now working on a spin-off series, which will connect to the Superhero School series, featuring one of the side characters by the name of Ricky Rent. He is a city mouse, and he's kind of a he's kind of a survivor. He kind of figures out a way to make everything work with very little. And so he is a very popular character out of the first 2 books, and I've had a lot of requests for continuing his story. So I am right now writing the first book in his own series called Ricky Rent Street Rat, and the first one is going to be called Crowning the King.
Well, we can't wait to have you back to speak to us about Crowning the King. And in the meantime, where can folks go to connect with you, to find out more about Superhero School series, and to learn, when the next books will be out?
Well, I try to keep it all very, very simple. So every connection to me, what the next book is, what I'm doing, where to buy the books, where I'll be, all of that is on my website at donnasagercowan.com. So just try to keep it all in one place so they have one shop spot to get everything that they need to know.
That's wonderful. And if folks are fans of your books and they want to join either Team Cat or Team Simon and connect with you on social media, is there a way for them to do that?
Yes, they can follow me on any of my social media. Those links are also on my website, but I also have a private Facebook group for the Superhero School series for Team Cat and Team Simon. So all they have to do is put in a request, and then they can join the group and get some sneak peeks, some behind the scenes goodies that don't go out to the general public. And occasionally I have some prizes for them.
Well, there's a good incentive to go out there and join one of those teams. We've had a great time speaking with the author of the Superhero School series, Donna Sager Cowan. Donna, thanks so much for coming back and sharing your books with us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me back. I always enjoy coming to talk to your audience. They are so wonderful, and can't wait to come back again.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Lindsay Metcalf. She'll be here to celebrate Beatrix Potter, scientist, no voice too small. If you are the author of a great children's book, we'd love to have you as a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button that you find at the bottom of the page. That's actually the hardest part of being a guest on the show, is finding that contact button, and it's just like at the bottom of the page. Go to readingwithyourkids.com, scroll on down, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We'll let you know the next easy steps. We want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Donna Sager Cowan. Please be sure to check out her wonderful Superhero School series. Also want to thank my amazing team, starting with my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy. He has my back here in the studio handling security. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.